Next 10 years, loads to do. We want to build that momentum. It's all about, I think, just 100% of public sector need to be embedding social value using a weighting of 15-20%. That's a key issue. I mean, every single department needs to be doing it. Then I think it's all about business. How do we get business? And when I say business, it's not just those organisations working with the public sector. It's the FTSE 100, the FTSE 250 organisations. Why the hell aren't they doing social value? They talk about CSR and doing all good and responsible business, but they should be doing social value.
I would like to see this become part of business as usual, about the narrative about how we behave as organisations, both within the public sector and the private sector, so that it is just a way of doing things.
I think to continue developing the route that we've taken, I think going back to the core of Sodexo back in 1966 when we founded, we very much wanted to be at the centre of our communities. So it's a natural place for us to be, but we need to evidence that in the multitude of what we do across our business, whether private or public facing. I think for us it's the impact we deliver in those communities, the ability to recruit and retain people, where they understand and see the passion that we have for social value, and that becomes our USP going forward. So I think it's, as an organisation, being increasingly seen to be more holistic rather than just a supplier into government or into private clients.
What I want to see is a more consistent approach regionally and nationally. I want to also focus on the fact that it needs to be relevant and proportionate, because social value doesn't have one size fits all. I think we need to have some embedded practices where social value is seen as a mandate, because I think there's lots of us doing great, but there's lots of people also still not doing enough. So for me, it's about consistency, it's about a more mandated approach, and actually turning it round so it's very much about focusing on outcomes rather than cash and the value of the social value.
So in the next 10 years, I think what I would like to see quite drastically is this huge kind of push and drive from central government and then filtered down to local government and organisations, both private and public, to say that it's no longer something that is just an afterthought or something that is just it's just something you want to do if it's a priority to you.
So it's been 10 years since the start of the Social Value Act, and we've really seen a huge difference in organisations engaging with us as a social enterprise to incorporate us into their tenders and make us a key part of their bids. What we'd like to see moving forward is a bit more engagement, a bit more authenticity in the way they engage with us, so not just using us in tenders but also trying to deliver deeper impact after they've won a tender, for example. So that's more from a supply side. From a government perspective, really focusing down on not just services but also products as well. I think that's something that could be really exciting for the future.
I think there's a real opportunity to make sure that we're collaborating effectively within this sort of wider social value movement. I think feedback loops are really important and not something that we're always able to see implemented on a project basis. But until we really nail that collaboration piece between the public and private sector, and really the third sector as well, I think there are always going to be those same challenges around sort of, raising awareness and understanding. So I think our big aim should be to make sure we're leveling the playing field in terms of knowledge and access to information and guidance, and then using feedback loops to refine the process, that ultimately where we get to is a more collaborative process that people across the different sectors are very comfortable with, and so we're all pulling in the same direction.
I think the key word for me is collaboration. We're all on the same side here, public sector, private sector, third sector. I mean, community for me sits at the absolute heart of those three stakeholders, and they need to work together, support each other in getting to a place where we've got happy, healthy and thriving communities.
I think in the next 10 years, the policy agenda will shift again. And I think as we've been hearing today, levelling up is much more about community-led control, accountability. I think local authorities are much closer to local issues and challenges and are therefore better placed to solve problems. So I think we can be really confident in the ability of local institutions, local government in particular, to pioneer this agenda and really drive that proximity to placemaking, which I think is what local people will want to see, and how we'll see the concept of social value iterate, change again, but probably be much further to the forefront because it'll be much more practical to how we're all living our everyday lives.
In the next 10 years for social value, it's about bringing more organisations to the party. One of the conversations we had today at the conference was about how we can incentivise SMEs to get more involved in delivering social value, or at least getting recognition for delivering social value. There's a piece around simplification in the public procurement system, standardisation, making it easier for SMEs to get involved, removing some of the complexity. There's also a piece around the tax system and actually incentivising organisations for recruiting locally, for buying locally. So much more that we can do in this space to deliver the maximum social value and the maximum return on investment for local stakeholders and local taxpayers.
We all know about the climate crisis. We all know that's high up on the E list of things to do. It strikes me we've got to get just as organised around the S, and the social value piece is absolutely at the top of that list. If we can get that much more right, if we can join those together, the whole thing starts to move and flow in a way that actually, from the point of view of responsible organisations and just having a bigger and a better purpose in the world overall, whether you're public sector, private sector, voluntary, it doesn't matter, you can be any kind of organisation, you actually feel that you are part of this bigger movement of change that is now going on. It feels like it's somewhat unavoidable.